What up, everybody? How's it going? This is your truly Rama screen covering movies, TV, and entertainment, and it's time for another collabo video. And I'm so stoked because I'm a fan of this guy, and so we're gonna have him on this latest segment. His name is Ren. How's it going, Ren?
Hi, Rama. Thanks so much for having me. Feel very humbled that you say you're a fan because I'm a fan of yours myself. And this is a collab I've been wanting to do on my own channel. So now for sure I have to bring you back over there one day.
Awesome, awesome. Now, you live in London, right?
As of March 2018, yes, I moved here to take a master's in directing and I finished almost 3 months ago now. So now I'm on the job hunt.
All right, and but you're Portuguese, right? You're living in London,
Yes.
so I have a lot of Portuguese friends. So let me get this right. Bom dia.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
Tudo
good
bem?
morning. Yeah.
So that's all I know. Now I've been to London once. I loved it when I was a kid. Loved the tube, the black taxi cab, whatever they call it,
Yeah.
and the double decker bus. And I need to go back because I'm a huge fan of Arsenal, and so I need to go back and actually watch one of their games. I didn't get to when I was a kid back then. London is also a hub for big movie premieres, right? I mean, like, I'm sure that I think the Aladdin had one there. I think Endgame had one there. I think Dark Phoenix may have
Yeah.
one coming up. Let me ask you how busy, how glamorous is the movie scene there in London?
It's pretty big over here, really pretty big. There's where the premieres are mostly, at least 90% of the time, are at Leicester Square, which is a location you would mostly recognize if you watch constantly premieres from the UK. But if you go a few streets behind that main square, you'll find all these sorts of visual effects houses like MPC, like Weta. So there's this entire street, and every building is a different visual effects company. So you just see people constantly getting in and out, and people working overtime, getting out of there at late hours in the night. And also the studios are back there. I was invited once and never again, so I don't know if I did anything wrong, but I was invited once to the 20th Century Fox house last year to watch,
Cool.
what was it? Yeah, what did I watch? I watched Bad Times at the El Royale. I had not Mike, Mark Kermode was sitting right next to me. So it was a really
Wow.
cool experience. Yeah.
Now,
For a guy from Portugal, which is a really small country, it's just pretty big.
hey, that's a good thing, my friend. I'm so happy for
Yeah.
you. How close are you to the legendary Pinewood Studios, James Bond's home?
Not close.
Not close.
I mean, I guess I could get there if I had a car,
Yeah.
or if I went on a bus. I'd get there within not as I wouldn't take an hour, a little less than that. So I live in West London, and basically Pinewood is northwest, if I'm not mistaken. So it'd take me like 45 minutes, let's say, to get there, but it's not a close walk, let's say.
Oh, that's one of my dream places to go and visit, Pinewood Studios. It's very famous. I think they did some other stuff there too, not just James Bond stuff, over the years. I think Star Wars may have shot some stuff there too.
Star Wars is there, Avengers does stuff there, all these sorts of movies. This wasn't in Ealing Studios, but since we're talking about studios, Andy Serkis and his Imaginarium Studios. So basically, the film school I went to here in London last year, it shared the premises with a very famous studio, which is Ealing Studios. The original Lady Killers was filmed there,
Nice.
and Andy Serkis has a studio there as well.
Nice, very nice. Love that guy.
Yeah.
Now, for the viewers, you are, like you said, you're studying film, you're a screenwriter, directing, right? Can you talk a bit about some of the stuff that you've done, short films wise, or any projects that you're probably working on?
Yeah, so I did a short film to get my bachelor's degree back in Portugal, which was a very general course. It wasn't necessarily film, but I could have that option of making a short film, so I decided to do it, and I based it on let's not call it a book right now, let's call it a manuscript that I wrote. And then I turned the first chapter of that story into a short film. It was a fantasy short film about mythologies and whatnot, very complicated. Then I did, because I had almost this gap year, because I only had one subject left to do, I had mostly an entirely free year between coming here to London and when I got my bachelor's. So I did a John Wick fan film, which is on
Cool.
YouTube attached to my John Wick 2 review. I did a comedy skit that was basically Kylo Ren living in his cousin's house after the events of The Force Awakens.
That's awesome.
And I'm not really good at comedy, so that one was just for the laughs, if there are any laughs to have. And I just finished my master's degree as well with a short film, original screenplay by me, which was a drama that I'm now sending out into film festivals and hopefully getting into them.
That's great, man. And it got me thinking like they should make I don't know, Saturday Night Live or you or anybody should make a sketch about the day after Leia kissed Luke. That should be be like, hey, yeah, kind of like awkward. Like, should we talk? But no, maybe not.
Yeah, I'm surprised nobody has done that until now. Now that you mention it,
exactly. Now we're gonna get more to your YouTube channel as well and your other stuff, but let's get right to the heart of the matter here for our collabo today. And that is, we're going to discuss the 20th anniversary of The Matrix. The Matrix opened in 1999, specifically March 31st in theaters in America and also international. So it's been 20 years that this movie has rocked our world, our cinephile world. And I remember my first time watching it, it was actually not in the theaters. I watched it on DVD, a friend of mine. And that was like, after that, it became an addiction, because the first time I watched it, my first reaction was like, holy crap, this is so unlike anything I've ever seen. And it was so groundbreaking, so unique. I think I want to say probably like a year after the movie hit theaters, then I finally first watched it. I was a bit late in the Matrix scene. So let me ask you, when did you first watch Matrix for the first time? And do you remember what was your reaction after watching it the first time?
I do remember what my reaction. I was even later than you, because when the first Matrix came out, it was 1999. I was 6 years old. Mm-hmm. So the first Matrix that I actually watched was Reloaded in theaters.
Nice.
And I wasn't a fan of that one. At 10 years old, I wasn't a fan of the second one already.
You were already critical by then.
Yeah. I was already bored with that film. And a few months later, The Matrix Revolutions came out. And I was like, shit, another one? What the? I had no notion of being filmed back to back and whatnot. So I just stumbled upon the original one on TV the weekend after watching the second one. And that one, I was like, I like this. I really like this, because it had a lot of focus on story, and the action highlights were just that, highlights, and they stuck with me. I love the bullet motion.
Of course.
I don't remember, at the time at least, I don't remember disliking anything about that film. Keanu Reeves was my favorite actor for a long time after watching the original Matrix.
Now, I agree with you on that, and I think a part of the appeal of the movie is also it's filled to the brim with lots of philosophical, spiritual stuff, especially coming from Morpheus. And I remember the first time watching it, I didn't have subtitles on, so and then I came to America. At the time, it was about a year that I was an immigrant, so my English wasn't that great. So I was like, I like the action and everything, the looks and whatnot. But later on, I rewatched it again a few years later with subtitles on, and I kind of understood better now of this whole simulation world and all this philosophy that Morpheus kind of threw at our face. And I grew to like it even more.
Yeah, I agree. I love what stuck with me, and I've been rewatching the original one through the years because I love it so much, is the spirituality. And I think it stuck out because the Wachowskis, they had They basically
Yes.
have this Western style, like a cocoon, but within it they have this like Eastern approach to all these questions and topics that nobody in America, let's say, had really thought of it that way. So I think that's why The Matrix really blew people's minds and still does to this day.
And for the viewers at home, The Matrix ended up ultimately winning 4 Oscars: Best Film Editing, Best Sound, excuse me, Best Sound Effects Editing, Best Visual Effects. Obviously, that's like, of course, visual effects winning. I was surprised about film editing. Usually, I'm sure you know that a movie that wins editing usually ends up winning the Best Picture. It's not always the case, but of course, Matrix didn't win Best Picture that year, but it did win film editing. Let's talk a bit about, of course, the most memorable, because I know we're going to be talking about favorite scenes later on, but the most memorable, the thing that people remember the most about The Matrix, the first one, is the bullet time. The
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves bending backwards, going slow mo. It got parodied and spoofed by so many comedy sketches and so many movies out there for months. I'm like, to the point where I think Scary that Wayne Brothers movie, Scary Movie, also spoofed it. And
Yeah.
it got to the point where like, oh, again, I come to a theater to watch another movie, and then I see another spoof of Matrix done by them. I was like, it's like, how many more of these I need to see? But it was so loved. That scene was so loved by so many people that they want to do their own version. And I don't know. I try to look at other science fiction prior to the Matrix, that kind of sort of had slow mo, but it never reached to that level of inventiveness. I think, and as you as a filmmaker probably would know more than I do about the techniques, because I saw the featurette about the cameras thing. What are your thoughts about that?
I think it was revolutionary at the time. I can tell you that because it was one of the first films that actually shot it in slow motion, and not so much did the slow motion and slow down the footage in post production, which I can tell you is both a blessing and a curse.
Why?
Because when you learn about film, it's one of those things you don't want to know, but you do notice. And so sometimes when they do slow motion and do bullet time in the sequels, it's so bad because you can tell it's post production, and I'm like, you have the technology, you basically created it. Why don't you do it again? But that first instance on the rooftop, Neo bending backwards, that you just said was spoofed for years, and I would argue it still is.
Did you
The
see? Oh, yeah, go
technology.
ahead.
I was going to say
Yeah,
just the technology was almost not there at the time.
yeah.
So the fact that they actually did it and did it there on set and shot it that way was unbelievable. For 1999 to do that, just amazing.
You've seen the featurette, right? The behind the scenes. If you've seen if you got the
Yeah,
Blu-ray, so
not recently, but yes.
yeah, and I'm sure it's available on YouTube for everybody to see as well. That so he's tied to a wire, and of course, Keanu Reeves will bend like that, and the wire will hold him up. And then you see these cameras around him positioned in a way that the camera, each of them will take pictures rapidly in
Yeah.
succession, one after the next, like pop, 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 pop. And then they combine it with CG and add, the background and whatnot. Man, that Wachowski was just imaginative, man. They were beyond their time, ahead of their time. Whew.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And in many ways, even though I've not been the biggest fans of their films following The Matrix, in terms of
Yes.
the filmmaking process, they've always tried and innovate, at least in most of them, not in Jupiter Ascending, but let's not talk about that. But when you see even featurettes for other films that I may not be a fan of, I see that the filmmaking process is extremely creative and always trying to look one step ahead of others.
Yes, which brings me to like, would you as a filmmaker apply that technique for any of your scenes? What would you have it
I
be
would do it
about
for action scenes for sure.
for
I
action
think
scenes?
there's something that connects action scenes or big moments within action scenes to slow motion that you almost want to be able to screenshot it and not have any blur from any movement, and then like some movie moments that you want to look at it, screenshot it, and say, I want to paint this on my wall, and then you do it.
Now, I know that after that, a lot of other filmmakers have adopted bullet time as well, and slow. Of course, we know Zack Snyder overdoes it sometimes in many of his movies. If you see, what's that? The doll, the Sucker Punch with Baby Doll. Yeah, there's so many bullet times. I'm like, oh my god, like it's just bullet time after bullet time, bullet time. It's like so
they had bullet time so they could fill in the runtime of the film.
Exactly. Instead of focusing on actually making a good story, but but that is a good point, because Wachowskis, I love them to death, but their movies after that, Cloud Atlas, Jupiter Ascending, they're just not as good, man, story wise. I think they had trouble recapturing the magic in terms of the story. But a Speed Racer, they also did Speed Racer, which is horrible. But the Matrix was just like everything working together perfectly in harmony, story, visual effects, everything around it.
Yeah, I think it almost feels like the Matrix was a happy accident, and all the pieces, directing, writing, cinematography, editing, and all of it just happened to come together. And now you look back at it and you wonder, what if it wasn't just a one-time thing,
Yes. And here's another fun fact that I've gathered doing the research here. And feel free to chime in if you have any more notes as well, that the studio, WB, actually demanded more explanatory dialogue added in to the lines, because the studio execs felt like the movie was hard to understand, which is why if you watch the movie, Morpheus explains so many things to Neo. It's as if he's explaining it to us, the audience, like every little thing. Like, oh, this is what happens here. And then if you do this like this, I don't know if you catch that. He would always guide every step of the way. Not just necessarily to Neo, but to the audience. And so that's an interesting fun fact, I think. I wonder what the script was like the first time around.
That makes a lot of sense, actually, because as a critic, I sit down many times and I say that that film X or film Y or film W over-explains it and treats the audience like they're dumb, and they shouldn't. But last year, during my year in film school, I would have not obvious dialogue, but then my tutor would say, you need to make it perfectly clear, you need to treat audiences like they're dumb because they need to be explained everything. And on the back of my head, I'm thinking, no, they don't, we don't like that. What do I do? So now there's these two sides of my brain. There's the director who needs to make it clear for everyone, and there's the critic who says we don't need to be spoon-fed. But on a producer standpoint, so like the studio demanding the dialogue to be more clear, makes total sense, because they have that fear that the audiences will not understand. So as a director, if I receive that message from the studio, I'll be like, well, that sucks, because I know the audiences aren't dumb. But on a producer standpoint, I can tell you they did a damn good job, and they did, or at least asked the Wachowskis what they should have asked.
On that note, the most recent movie that I guess I may not be sophisticated enough to wrap my head around it is Jordan Peele's Us. I was like, when I told my viewers, like, it would really help if Jordan had been a lot clearer in terms of the hands across America and the doppelganger, instead of I know movies, filmmakers love it. You can relate probably. Filmmakers love it when their stories are open to interpretation. But when it's too much open to interpretation, it's hard for the audience to grasp or to grab anything, to hold on to it. What do you think?
I agree with you that I think it's awesome when you create something that's open for interpretation. I also agree with you that Us left too many gaps opened, and so the connective threads are not all there. There's this, and it's a very delicate balance. I mean,
that's true.
What you have to leave questions hanging, but it's the questions that the audience will create from themselves, not that you ask them the questions. have to make a cohesive piece, and then that will open the questions for the audience.
Oh my God, talking to you is like being in a classroom, man. Being in an acting filmmaking school classroom. Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you.
I
I
appreciate
feel
it.
humble, honestly.
Now, let's talk a bit about Keanu Reeves here. One of my favorite actors. By the time he made The Matrix, he already made, of course, Bill and Ted back in the 80s and early 90s. But in the 90s, he made Point Break and Speed. Speed was a huge blockbuster success. And then Johnny Mnemonic, which I wasn't too crazy about. And then he made some dramas, including The Devil's Advocate, which features, I think, the best movie Satan ever, Al Pacino. So it's, I mean, the timing of the timing of the Matrix arrival to his career as an actor, it could not be more perfect. And here's a fun fact that I'm sure your viewers and my viewers also know, that his stunt doubles, he worked with a lot of stunt workers on the Matrix, the first Matrix. Uh, Two of them include David Leitch and Chad Stahelski, both of whom end up making John Wick franchise for Keanu Reeves. So it's just, for me as a fan, because after Speed, I was like, oh man, if only I like this guy, I like this Keanu. He needs to get another big hit again. Like, he hasn't had one in a while. And then The Matrix comes, and then after the Matrix trilogy ended, I was like, oh, Keanu's doing Something's Gotta Give and all this other, not so great stuff. It's like, and then John Wick came around. It's like, oh, thank God for the guys who are involved in the Matrix. It's just you're always on a nice sweet spot if you're Keanu Reeves. I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, because apparently in real life he's just this awesome dude. And you're right. I mean, immediately after The Matrix, there was Constantine, so maybe there was a hope for a franchise there. But Constantine flopped, unfortunately. I don't hate it, but it's not the best film. And then apparently he became disliked by the studios just because he wasn't bringing in box office, unfortunately. And on one hand, that sucks, but on the other hand, I kind of understand the studio's mentality. And for years, Keanu Reeves would pop here and there and be like, oh, Keanu Reeves, I like this guy. And 2014, October, finally, bam, John Wick comes out from these guys who were stunt coordinators or stunt artists. And I was not confident for John Wick, but they blew me away. And now we look back on Keanu Reeves having an amazing trilogy of films. And it's not The Matrix. Who knew that?
That's a good point. And I think here's the thing with Keanu Reeves, though. He's good for these kinds of movies.
Yeah.
Like, you try to put him in drama, he'll be okay, but not so great. And sometimes, movies that people are like, because I don't want to be mean, Ren, but to be honest, acting wise, Keanu Reeves. It's not that amazing acting wise. If you're not gonna get Oscar nominee Keanu Reeves anytime soon, mentioned, or associated with his name. So it's like this. If you've seen Diane Keaton movies lately, it looks like they all look the same. Including the Palms one. But that's okay, because Diane Keaton has found this area of pocket of storytelling or genre that she's comfortable in. That this is where she belongs, these kinds of movies like Palms and all those kinds of movies. So that this is the area that Keanu Reeves is good at. John Wick, the Speed, Matrix. To expect him, to go with what you said about the studios disliking him because he doesn't rake in box office money. The reason why he did not rake in box office money is because those movies were not good fit for him. That was not the area, And then he found, Matrix, and he found John Wick again. That's his fit. That's his area. Just like Diane Keaton with her movies.
Yeah, and I even think, like, it hasn't happened yet. And I agree with you. He has not shown that he can really bring it when it comes to real drama, Oscar-worthy screenplay, dialogue, and whatnot. But I think the right director is out there to get it out of him.
Yes.
the combo that he unfortunately still needs to find. Like Devil's Advocate, I'm not saying he was amazing, but that was the best I've seen him when it comes to handling drama.
Agreed.
And I think if you're going to cast him in a drama, you can make one of these films that if you have real meat under the bone, and real meat is always drama when you look at film and see the layers on it. I mean, Devil's Advocate, it is actually the devil, but you're looking at it from a metaphorical perspective when it comes to the characters almost. So I just think he still needs to find that right director to get it out of him, because I'm sure there's a director out there who can do it. Just hasn't happened yet, which is unfortunate because 99% of actors by this time, by the age that Keanu Reeves is at right now, they have found at least one director that can get a great performance out of them.
All right, so that we'll leave that up to writer-director Ren to figure that out. You're gonna be it, man.
Son of Wick.
You're gonna be the one, my friend. I believe in you. Here's another fun fact before we get to the next bullet point here. I just want to bring it to your viewers and my viewers that legendary kung fu choreographer Wun Ping Yuen. He choreographed the fights in The Matrix. He also did Kill Bill and Crouching Tiger and all the amazing stuff. And I read that he demanded big fee, and the Wachowskis, even though the studio's like, I don't know if we want to pay him that much, and the Wachowskis like, just give him. And then he also demanded 4 months of training with the actors prior to filming, and the Wachowskis like, yeah, you can have it too. So they really believe in making sure that as far as the fight choreography, that it's not done half-heartedly. They get the best of the best in the business for it, and they're like, hey, you are worth the money. Yeah, whatever you want, here it is. Now, I gotta talk. This is gonna be fun. This is of course what everybody knows. You know how Tom Selleck was close to playing Indiana Jones, but of course Harrison Ford got the role instead. And we all know Will Smith. Will Smith was offered the role of Neo in The Matrix, and he legendary turned it down. And he revealed on his Instagram this past year why that is, and you can watch it on his Instagram account. But in a nutshell, he said that the Wachowski, the way they pitched the movie to him, is just like, oh yeah, you're gonna be this dude, and then you're gonna jump, and then the camera goes 360, and then Will Smith's like, what are you talking? I don't understand what the words that come out of your mouth. And so he ended up doing Wild Wild West instead, which was a stinker. What are your thoughts about what are your thoughts about that, Ren? Will Smith was this close to playing Neo.
Yeah.
Could you picture him as Neo?
Ultimately, I think the movie gods were looking down and turned the right wheels of fate around, because Neo, I mean, they choose Keanu Reeves because you want something from the actor to bring of himself or herself to the character. But when it comes to Will Smith, he would not fit this role at all, because Neo, I don't mean this as an insult, but Neo, when it comes to his charisma and his demeanor, he's very similar to the character that Will Smith played in After Earth. And we all know how that worked out. And we like Will Smith because he's super fun, charismatic, vibrant, he's loud, he's exuberant. I just don't see him in this role of Neo, which, at least in the first film, is a character who mostly asks questions and tries to understand the mechanics of this world, trying to navigate in it. I just don't see any Will Smith in it.
I think the movie would not have been. It may have reached some level of success, but it would not have been as huge had it starred Will Smith. I mean, the people will still talk about the bullet time and the slow mo. But I think the critics and fans will have a lot to say about Will Smith's performance as Neo if he had starred in it, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think the performance would not have been well received, because it would have seemed like Will Smith was almost not acting. It would have felt like he was too trapped or too enclosed, like they didn't want him to express very much. And Will Smith is an expressive dude.
Yes.
And he's great because of it. While Keanu, that's not his strength, but he's great because he's not very expressive. And I think the Neo character, as we know and love him, I think we also know him because he is not very expressive. He's very stoic almost.
Now, uh, I gotta ask you this as a a filmmaker and aspiring filmmaker after you get your masters. So this situation does bring up the question of what's the most effective way to pitch your movie to potential talents, the do's and the do nots. So if you want Will Smith to start in your movie, but you don't want to confuse him, I mean, what's the best way to pitch your movie? Do you think?
I think the best way is don't tell what happens in your film. Don't tell the actors or whoever. If you want to sell your film, for instance, don't tell people the plot, which is the plot is the sequence of events. The story is what is actually going on thematically. For instance, let me pick a recent example. First Man. First Man is Neil Armstrong losing his daughter, going to space, having a discussion with his wife, and then he finally goes to the moon. He says finally goodbye to his daughter. He comes back and he makes peace with his wife. But what the film is about a man going through grief and being angry at himself and having problems in his marriage. That's what the film is about. That's the story. So to me, The Matrix, for instance, what is it about? It's about all these philosophical things, and then the Wachowskis would go into specifics. But don't tell the film about the spectacular things that you're going to do that people are going to see in the product. Tell the actors. So, for instance, when you hear dialogue in a film, you understand that people are not actually saying what they want to say. That's why people never speak clearly in films. So to the actors, for instance, you tell them, what is he actually saying? I had this thing, I had to do this with my actors. There was this one scene, in the last scene, no spoilers, one character is getting married, the other hasn't seen this character for years, and he comes to her wedding. And when the bride character asks if the main character will take her to the altar, what she's actually saying is, are you here to marry me or are you here to take me away? So when he says, I will, of course, that means he's ready to give her away, and he has given up on pursuing a relationship with her. So basically, it's all the hidden meanings, basically, that you tell the actors or that you tell the people that you want to sell your film to. What is it actually about? For instance, another example, my BA film is a fantasy film about summoning spirits to fight in a war and whatnot. What is it actually about? It's about this one guy who doesn't have magic powers and whatnot, and he's going to sacrifice himself for his friends. So it's a film mainly about friendship, and that's the main theme.
Now, thank you for that, man. I appreciate your sharing that. And also, I think on the opposite end of that, from the perspective of Will Smith, it's hard to predict the future unless you're Nostradamus. but but it's like it's a leap of faith too on what projects you would agree to do, because I read this article recently, for example, about director Dexter Fletcher, who did Rocket Man. And he was one of the first filmmakers that was supposed to do Bohemian Rhapsody, and of course he didn't end up doing that. But later on he got brought back after Bryan Singer got fired. So anyway, he said that the reason was like creative differences. I wanted the story to be rated R, like Rocket Man is rated R. Kind of gritty a little bit, not too gritty, but at least something real and grounded. And the Fox is like, no, we wanted to make it about celebration of the band. And so I left, and he heard, because I wanted to make that movie so bad, he said in the article. But hey, what do I know? Because the movie ended up being Oscar nominated, and it ended up getting $900 million at the box office worldwide. So sometimes you can't predict this stuff, you might say, hey, my vision is the right one, or like, oh, that project that you're pitching me sounds dumb. It turns out to be good, and then it's like, oh, that sounds awesome. All right, and then it turns out terrible. You can't really predict these things. I think, like you said, just the universe just aligns just right for the Matrix. Fortunately.
Yeah, and I think 99% of filmmaking is just finding the right pieces to fit together on every level. So, for instance, throughout the film school year, we work with actually real actors, struggling actors, not anyone famous, but we work with actors that are out there, and you've seen them pop up in TV shows, but they just don't have the main starring role yet. And you're amazed because these people are fantastic, most of them at least. And throughout several exercises throughout the year, you work with different actors, but sometimes you stumble upon people you've worked with before. And throughout the year, I got to realize this dude or this girl are fantastic actors, but I've come to realize I don't work well with them. I don't really gel with them well. Other people who are just as equally fantastic, I work really well with those people. So you want to work with them again. The Wachowskis with Keanu Reeves, clearly they work well with them. A very famous or infamous example is Bruce Willis with Kevin Smith in Cop Out. These two did not gel well. We know Bruce Willis can be a good actor. I mean, he just did something really good with M. Night Shyamalan in Glass. But he just doesn't work well with Kevin Smith. And we know that Kevin Smith can get great performances from Ben Affleck, from Jason Lee.
That's true.
So it's always a matter of just pieces. Maybe it's the actor and the director. Maybe it's the director and the producer. Maybe it's the director and the cinematographer. That's why you see always – it's not necessarily because Christopher Nolan doesn't like Roger Deakins that he keeps bringing his other cinematography around. It's because he knows he can work well with that guy. So he finds it better not to take that one risk, you know?
I got you.
So it's always being very careful and playing the right pieces and putting the pieces in the right place, and hopefully it will work out well.
I agree. It's trying to find that right chemistry, definitely. Now, favorite scenes. Now, I know that people are gonna be throwing the bending backward bullet time thing, but my favorite scenes. Let me give you just two. The fight training, Neo versus Morpheus. Love it. Whenever I rewatch The Matrix, I would fast forward to that part because it's like my favorite, most fun part. And I know people love the lobby shootout, but my second favorite actually is not that. My second favorite is the subway fight between Neo and Agent Smith. That's also the one that I keep replay and play it on loop. What are some of your favorite scenes in The Matrix?
A honorable mention is the lobby fight, because that one is just spectacular. Because watching it recently, it's just insane to me. And I keep noticing this in more and more movies. And I actually don't like it because it's my filmmaker mind and not my fan mind. But to me, it's just insane. That lobby fight, the way they destroy everything around them, just imagine going for a second take on that and having to rebuild mostly everything. So that would be a nightmare. So that's an honorable mention. Then my number two scene is the subway fight scene as well, because it's one of those that just hurts from looking at it. So I'm constantly while I'm watching it. And my favorite one, I gotta say, it's probably going to be underwhelming, but it's when Neo and Morpheus first meet.
Yeah.
Because it's when looking back and rewatching the film, everything just comes together. And in a way, and I'm not trying to create a conspiracy theory, but it almost feels like Morpheus knows exactly everything that's going to happen, at least in the first film.
Now, you know what's a great shot? There are many great shots in this film, but that scene where Trinity was flying the helicopter and she got out of, and then the helicopter crashes into the building. Do you notice how it's like it just ripple effect first, and then those flash? I was like, whoa! Yeah. The first time I watched it, I was like, it's as if the helicopter was blending in with the windows. I was like, wow, so great, man. The CG is amazing in that part. That got me geeking out every time I see it.
And it was actually really easy to create that, because when you have a singular, almost singular, not singular, an almost singular reflective surface, it makes it very easy because you just have to transmit and recreate the actual lighting that would be shining on the helicopter and the windows. And in that moment, it almost is the same because the light's coming only from one side.
Dang, it's so good, so good. Oh, this movie, I can't get enough of it. Of course, non-action favorite scenes of mine, anything involving Keanu Reeves saying, whoa, or like, I know Kung Fu.
Yeah.
I love the guy, man.
Yeah.
He still
Now
has.
imagine Will Smith saying that. It wouldn't work.
Yeah, it wouldn't work. And Keanu Reeves still has a little bit of Ted in him. It's just like
Yeah.
you can't get rid of it. Whoa, that's so Ted, man.
That's excellent.
That was excellent. Uh, now, a few fun facts again for the fans. The Matrix right now stands at 88% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. It was praised by critics generally when it first came out as one of the best science fictions of all time. I think a philosopher named William Irwin suggested that the film explores significant philosophical and spiritual themes, and The Matrix has been included in the National Registry Library of Congress, which is this catalog collecting films that are influential to American pop culture history. They're not the best of the best films, but films that are of importance to American culture and reflect who Americans are as a nation. So let me ask you this, Ren. Would you take the red pill or the blue pill?
I always hate this question. Um,
There's a lot of memes about
I'm
this too.
yeah, I'm going to say blue. I'm going
Blue.
to say blue. I mean, probably tomorrow the answer will be different, but right now, this moment in time, I would say blue.
Yeah, because you're in a sweet spot of your life, man.
Yeah,
You're pursuing your film
exactly.
career. You don't want to be revealed that you're part of an apocalypse world where everything's destroyed.
Exactly. Yeah.
I would probably take the blue pill too. I really do. And it brings us to like the question, like, okay, what if your world is not the real world? What if your world is a simulation? Kind of like, and it's been done in different concepts in other movies, like Inception, dream within a dream. And whenever I rewatch The Matrix, I always thought, maybe it's a reach to think about this, but The Matrix is what happens if, the events in the Terminator movies after the machines fully take
Mm.
over and turns us into batteries. So whereas the Terminator movies are still like the things prior to it, and the Matrix is like what comes after it. And I think it's more convenient of the blue pill because it's always more convenient to be oblivious. They say ignorance is bliss. It's true. It's like
Yeah.
not knowing something that's as dramatic and as devastating as the fact that your world is not what you think it is. That makes me happy. And also let's talk about the originality of the Matrix, or maybe some of the influences for the Matrix. I'm sure you agree that it also has a bit of likeness to Star Wars, whereas
Yeah.
in that Morpheus is like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Neo is like Luke Skywalker. The idea of being the one, the savior, the Jesus Christ that's gonna bring down the empire. So in that way, I guess you could say that the Matrix is not pure original stuff. It's influenced by other stuff
Yeah.
as well.
For sure, it has very much the archetypical points and beats of the Hero of a Thousand Faces, for instance,
Ah,
which is
that's
a
true.
classic story that Star Wars, basically any comic book that you've ever read, and I say 99% of movies have that archetypical structure and
Mm,
archetypes. But to me, originality would come from the way you dress it. So Star Wars was original. I think The Matrix is original. But in this day and age, even in 1999, it's been 1,999 years since the beginning of the world, and human beings have been telling stories ever since then. How original can you really be? So to me,
it's
where you find
true.
originality is just in the way you dress it. And whether so let's say you and I would both disagree that the Matrix is original. It clearly hit people as something original. So it's about how it was collectively received and is being received up until this day that proves uh, its impact and the impact of how it was dressed, despite being based on those already already written down structures and archetypes of characters, of beats, of plot points, and of story points as well.
Agreed, agreed. And you know what? It just came to my mind right now that even though I would take the blue pill and live in this blissful ignorance world, um, I would love to experience a simulation as real or feels real, like the Matrix, like the training fight, or the one where the weapons just like come at you like a train or a freight train.
Yeah.
Because we have virtual reality right now, VR games, but they're not at that level yet, obviously.
Yeah.
But I would love for our VR technology or simulation technology to actually reach that level because it looks so fun. Don't you think so?
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I actually am not interested in VR games right now because they are not at that level that I would actually feel engrossed and like I was there. I even tried them in some stores because they have the not the glasses, but
The Oculus?
yeah, the Oculus. They
Yeah.
have that there, and they let you try it on for a few minutes. And I've tried it on, but it's fun. It's fun. It's all right. I have a good time in those few minutes that I'm there, but I wouldn't want to experience that more. Whereas if we had technology to that level of the Matrix, that would be a blast. I'd probably kill myself, but it would be a blast.
Yeah, 'cause the level of like Ready Player One. That's also like the
Exactly.
Matrix.
Yeah,
So
we're just sitting down on the couch.
um, the Matrix also spawned not just the sequels, but I'm sure there's the Matrix video games or the Matrix. There's that famous The Matrix anime short films that were inspired by Matrix.
The Animatrix.
That's right, Animatrix. I think was it 4 segments. I forgot how many were.
It's 4 or 5. It can't be any more than that because of the runtime. But I can check it real fast.
No worries, no worries. So that's what came after the Matrix, not just the Reloaded and Revolution, but I think there's some books as well. I'm not sure. So it was
And comic books.
comic books as well. So it was a phenomenon, a very engrossing, encompassing phenomenon that just like for the next few years after the Matrix came out, everybody just either couldn't get enough of it or try to make their own version of it or try to make or trying to expand the story in other mediums like video games or comic books. They just love it, love it, love it, love it. Now, as I'm winding down to our final topics here, so the Matrix came out way before social media and the internet was still in its early days, I guess you could say. Probably the late 90s is not really early days, but still not as it is today, not as permeating as today. And if you notice in the Matrix, the cell phone that Neo had in his cubicle in his office is massive. It's like, and the computer PC is like very old school. Now I want to ask because I watched it again last night. I guess for the most part, 80% of it, the movie did age well. It did age well, except for some parts. I want to some things that stand out to me, including the CG for the sentinels that attack the Nebuchadnezzar. That they look kind of bit dated a bit. You can tell, when you watch 80s science fiction, including Tron, you could tell that it's been dated. That's how I feel when I saw the Sentinels attacking the Nebuchadnezzar. Like, okay, after you've seen such movies as Endgame or Infinity War, and then, your eyes are already used to that, your sight, and then you watch something like Sentinels attacking Nebuchadnezzar, it's like, oh, yeah, that doesn't blend well anymore. So you can tell the difference now. But other than that, I think I would say for the most part, it still holds up. It ages pretty well. What are your thoughts about that?
I agree on the CGI, but I've come to recently not be as harsh on CGI that doesn't work if the film actually has a good story behind it. Because you say it, I say it, other movie reviewers here, our friends on YouTube, we all say it that CGI shouldn't be a story, but a means to tell a story. But only recently, I myself have come to realize what that actually means. So the CGI may not be the best, but it was there. I understood what it was, and it helped tell the story. So I've come to not be as harsh on that, even though I'll recognize that it doesn't age well, for instance, in The Matrix. My, I won't say big problem, but my bigger problem, that is not the CGI, is, as we spoke a bit earlier, the dialogue. Here and there are things you could trim out. And again, I understand the mentality of the studios when they ask that of the Wachowskis, but looking at the final product, and that's what we're here to criticize, or celebrate, is the dialogue. There are moments, and Morpheus especially is the worst offender of this, unfortunately. It's just, sometimes he's talking, and then he keeps talking, and then he keeps talking, and I'm like, shut up, I got it, yes, let's go. So yeah, the dialogue is I won't say it's a big problem, but between the two problems that I have, it's my bigger problem.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's he can get too preachy. It's like it's like we've heard your sermon already, Morpheus. To keep hammering us in the head with it. Let me ask you this. I guess I was trying to, I was rewatching it last night for our preparation for this collabo, and I'm trying to figure out, because when I watch a movie, by the end of it, we would criticize the cinematography, we would criticize the directing, or we would criticize the acting. You get the thing as a critic, as a reviewer. But also at the end of it, when I watch a movie, I would try to find the theme, or how I can relate to the characters, or I can relate to whatever message or lesson that the movie might want to convey. What do you think that The Matrix has on that front, or on that aspect?
It has a lot. Again, we spoke about this earlier. It has a lot of philosophical and spirituality questions that it would take another hour for us, you and I, to trap down specifically what those are. But at the end of the day, the ultimate question in the first one alone, to me at least, is, do you want to live in ignorance, or do you want to see that it's horrible out here? Do you want to see that machines depend on you and you do nothing but feed on the machines, and the world's already gone to shit and it's too late? Or do you want to, understanding that this world that you live in is fake and doesn't actually exist, do you want to be happy in this simulation? I think, do you want a horrible reality, or do you want a great fantasy? Basically, I would put it that way. That's what the film is about.
That's a good point. That is around the same area that I reach as well, conclusively, in that oftentimes, at least for me, sometimes I would find myself in a situation or a string of situations where, like, I'm comfortable, I like it here, but and then now I would be afraid to be hit in the face by reality check or truth. When somebody's like, when a friend is like, hey, Rama, here's what your problem is, or here's the truth is, here's the truth of the matter, you got to do this or that, you can't, something like that. Sometimes I'm fearful of that, and to take that pill, to take that leap of faith and jump. And I think that's something that, at least for me, I can personally relate to, even though I'm not in a simulation or in science fiction, but I can connect on that level, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, me too, because it's almost a mundane thing when you put it, when you phrase it right. Do you want the bad truth, or do you want the beautiful lie? And
yes.
I think it's I won't say an everyday thing, but it's almost a weekly thing that we, as people, with friends, with people from our family, whatnot, we get confronted by this dilemma on our daily lives. So it's something that we can relate to and recognize, and that's why the question, me choosing the blue pill, you choosing the blue pill, is so important and so topical, and we can actually answer it and understand our motives as to why we answer it.
Oh my God! Thank you so much, bro. Appreciate it. I'm glad to know that I'm not alone on this. So, and The Matrix is celebrating 20 years today, or this year. But I think you and I can agree that it will stand the test of time, and it'll hold up for the next 20 more years, even more longer than that. It was such a great film. Now, back to you, my friend. You have your own YouTube channel as well. You're reviewing movies. Talk a bit about what your channel offers? Does it have any other segments in addition to reviews? And what motivated you to become a YouTuber? Did you just wake up and like, hey, you know what? I want to be a YouTuber.
So I do movie reviews. I also review TV shows, even though they are very late right now. You know this, Rama.
I'm with you, brother. I'm with you.
And something behind me just fell. I don't know what it was.
No worries.
I think it was Freddie Mercury.
Or Freddy Krueger.
I don't have that one, so
okay.
I hope it's not Freddy Krueger. That will be a problem. I do movie reviews. I also do trailer reactions, even though I don't watch every trailer ever. Namely, I don't watch second trailers for films anymore. I'm actually going to start a new series of trailer reactions rather soon, or at least I'm going to try it out.
Awesome.
I do, whenever there's a big movie for, let's say, Endgame, I do live Q&As on the Sunday, so the end of the week in that movie comes out. Instead of just doing a spoiler review, I think it's more fun, and I like to interact with my audience. But outside of movie reviews, I don't do much else because I'm the type of guy who says, I'm not good at many things, but I am good at this one thing, and that is loving movies, talking about them film, and analyzing. And why I decided to create my channel was I had a rough few years, let's say 2013, 2014, were rough years for me. I don't want to go into it here. Don't think it's a place. It's just that.
No
I don't mind, but just don't think it's a place. And during those years, mainly what I grabbed onto was following Stuckman, Jeremy Jahns, the big guys that started this movie review thing. And I have loved film ever since I was a kid. I've always wanted to be an actor, and then I saw The Dark Knight in 2008, and I was like, no, I want to be a director.
Yes.
And after I got off that rough patch, after 2014, let's say, I decided, you know what? I wanna have a YouTube channel. I want to talk about movies like those guys talk about movies and just have fun with people around the world. So it took me a while for me to buy a camera, get a right setup, have a nice decoration behind me back in my home in Portugal. And I started in 2016. My first video was actually naming my top 10 movies of 2015. I looked very different. The lighting was shit. So was the sound. But yeah, I've been doing this for a while now, and I love it.
And then that's good, man. That's so cool because, that is one of my motivations too, for, being a YouTuber, sharing my stuff as well here. That I see people like John Campea and Jeremy Jahns. I was like, it's cool watching them, but I'm thinking like, hey, why do I just watch them? I can be like them too. I can be followed as well. I can be the one being watched as well. So, and then of course, like you watch movies like The Dark Knight. It's like, hey, that's cool. Like, I want to make movies too. I don't want to be just a viewer. I want to be the director too. So I think that's that ambition, that dream, that motivation that propels you. That's awesome, man. To be more than you can be. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Awesome. So, lastly, plug. Where can the viewers find you and subscribe to you and all that good stuff? Plug away.
You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all on Rens Geekness. That's my name on everything, so people don't get confused. I also have the same icon on everything, so people don't get confused. And hopefully, if things go right in my career, you'll hear my name, not Geekness, but Vieira, someday as a director writer on something. Because I'm working on a project outside of YouTube now, and it will hopefully be done by the end of the year.
And you tweeted that your latest icon or logo was designed by some artist or your fan, is it?
Yeah, no. I had to ask for it. I don't have that many fans that give me stuff.
That's cool.
It was my girlfriend Bruna, who's also a YouTuber, and I asked. I want a design. I want to have the Infinity Gauntlet and my lightsaber from Star Wars, and so she just did the design for me.
That's awesome, man. You got lightsaber, Infinity Gauntlet. The only thing missing
Yeah.
is the Neo glasses. That would have been
Yeah.
perfect. I'm just kidding.
I was going to say we should have done this review with glasses on,
That's right, both of
sunglasses.
us. And trench coats.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Ren, for collaborating with me on this 20th anniversary celebration of one of the most groundbreaking, one of the most loved science fiction action movies of all time, The Matrix. Everybody subscribe to Ren's YouTube channel right now. And until the next collabo, let's rock this.